Hey guys. So obviously over the last few days there's been a shit ton of political unrest in the United States. The sad thing is I'm not even surprised by this. I'm not even surprised in the slightest that someone's actually died because of this. Because I've been warning of this exact situation for months. And don't get me wrong, I mean, from what I can actually gather, the Unite the Right protesters do, for the most part at least, seem to be, well, white supremacists and Nazis and, well, yeah, Nazis. You know, there was some guy walking around with a Hitler quote on his back, and he looked a bit too old to be doing it to look edgy. But the fact of the matter is that it was the regressive left who threw the first punch. You know, I'm talking about, these violent groups like Antifa, these complete thugs. And I'm not talking about in this very specific event. I'm talking about in this recent political cycle. For example, there was some poor guy beaten into a coma at the Berkeley protests. Colleges and universities across America and Europe being completely trashed by groups like Antifa. People being beaten up for just supporting Donald Trump, or even less than that, supporting people's right to free speech. And of course, this is no excuse for what actually happened at the event with, the road rage and obviously that resulting in 19 people being seriously injured and one person even dying. But the point I'm trying to make is, which is something I don't think a lot of people on the left really understand, is that it was inevitable that if you kept swinging punches, that you were gonna get a punch back twice as hard. And don't get me wrong, the Unite the Right protesters didn't come out looking great, even if you exclude the road rage. I mean, to me, it seemed quite similar to a KKK rally from the 1920s that you might learn about in history. But again, what I don't think that the regressive left understands, and what mainstream media, which is dominated by the left, understand, is that to the common everyday person, the left have looked like a bunch of thugs, the aggressive left have looked like a bunch of thugs for a long fucking time. No matter how many times that, CNN or the Young Turks, after the Berkeley riots or happened in Germany, say that, it was just a handful of violent protesters, a handful of troublemakers. The majority of them were peaceful. No matter how many times people hear that line, people buy it less and less each time. And one of the funny things, I think that's, well, maybe not funny, but ironic things, I think that's the right word anyway, that's really come out of the media's coverage of this, is that by actually reporting fairly accurately, from what I can tell, they've exposed their hypocrisy big time. Because you know that had this been the other way around, had it been the left, or the regressive left, more specifically, that had been involved in this road rage in terms of being the ones behind the wheel, that all of a sudden, it would have been more emphasis on he was an individual, the majority of people were peaceful, and we would have, the usual bollocks come out of it, but the right-wing protesters aren't given the same treatment, the same leniency. And should they be? I mean, I'm not so sure that they should be given a bit of, the leniency, purely based on the fact that it seems to be a hell of a lot of bigots in the crowd from the coverage of everything I've seen. But if you have one rule for one group and another rule for another, all you're doing is delegitimizing anything you say in the future, because you are putting your bias out there for the world to see. And when it comes to any subject, that's got anything to do with that bias, you've lost credibility. So by all means, call this incident out for what it is. I mean, call the road rage, and I'm calling it that because I don't know what else to call it, but call it a terrorist attack, because it is, in my mind, a terrorist attack. It was done, from my knowledge anyway, from a political motivated place. But for fuck's sake, call her out when the left does it as well. Now, I could talk about the other hypocrisies, such as the heart attack every time they see a Nazi flag, Or, they see a Hitler quote and it's the most evil thing in the world, yet they parade around with the communist flag and Stalin fucking posters, at Corbyn rallies. But I think other people have covered that to a decent extent, so I won't get into that. But I do want to comment on something that Sargons said in his last video, that being that maybe we should have a name, like a label for ourselves. And what he said was the alt-liberals, or something along those lines. I hate this idea, whilst at the same time seeing the need for it. I think if we don't come up with a label for ourselves, then we are just going to be, branded anti-SJWs, anti-feminists, are going to be branded, being put in the same category as the alt-right. So I do think we need a label for ourselves, because we need a public image, and that's a simple fact. We need a public image. Because let's be honest, the media is not going to give us a fair hearing. I mean, they label half of us already with similar opinions Nazis, even though we're more like Nazis than they are in our ideology, or lack of ideology, I should say. But I think calling ourselves alt-liberals would be a mistake, because we already get called the alt-right. Despite the fact that all the big issues, we have nothing in common with them. So I think maybe we should try and stay away from a name that sounds similar to them. Maybe the New Liberals or something like that, yes, but yeah, I think we should stay away from the term alt, that's all I'm saying. And that's all from me. Have a good one.